Alrighty, we've got a match for the round of 16 between drsteelhammer and RTT, two of the top German players. So for this division of the bracket, I'm not sure which segment this is. The 8th seed's already out, dropped to drsteelhammer in the round of 32. I don't think that's actually the upset that it looks like just based on the seeds. drsteelhammer entered this tournament with a ridiculously low seed because I presume he just never plays rated games. But he's definitely been in the top 8 before, at least once. I think my first year, the first year I qualified, so like 4 years back, 5 years back, 2019. I remember he was in the top 8 because in the interview I described him as my nemesis, given our respective usernames. And maybe he's been in at other times as well, I'm not sure. And then RTT has definitely been in the top 8 because he knocked me out in the third place match in 2021. So we're seeing two former top 8 finishers. One of them will make it this year. RTT running a little bit behind. Who do they play if they win? Either Mick Sinak or Bitter Wormcoil. The bracket doesn't even go far enough back to show, but I believe this is the bracket that initially contained Kazumaru as the top seed of the, not the quadrant, it's like the 8th rent. I'm not sure what the noun is for that. Howdy, Steph. On the upside, I think these are both pretty fast players, so they will probably be done on time. What on time means before I have to leave. Yeah, it's fairly. Yeah, it is. It is coffee time in America for sure. I hate the smell of coffee. I'm kind of ambivalent on the smell. I don't love the taste of coffee. I just drink it for the caffeine. Alrighty, I don't speak German, but it appears RTT is telling DSH to die. So clearly some animosity between these two. So a delayed death. Or maybe it's an abbreviation for I'm not sorry at all. You never know. Anyways, what do we got here? Well, there's draw, siren, encampment, Sybil, kind of patrician, and I mean technically golem, except golem's terrible. So almost certainly you're building some big horn and plenty megaturn. You got crucible for thinning, as well as forge. Villages? Well, there's encampment. And again, technically Golem, but Golem's terrible. Plus buy, there's Herb Gatherer. But more to the point, there is Horn of Plenty. So how do you open? I guess the first thing I'll look at is there any easy way to cheat Siren? Because there usually is. In this kingdom, there's not a good way to gain it without trashing an action, I don't think. But you could just buy a pair of Overlords and play them as Sirens, which is probably more efficient. 4-3 seems lovely for Crucible Overlord. Crucible Herb Gatherer would also not be bad. Maybe even better. The Herb Gatherer gives you no debt and lets you play the Crucible really often. The Overlord lets you get started on the Siren attacks immediately. I think I'd prefer the Overlord. 3-4, I think, Herb Gatherer or Crucible probably. Just because Crucible Overlord isn't an option in that case. You can't buy the Overlord first, so it would be in debt. But they both go with the Overlord. We'll see how it works out. Yeah, Haka, I agree. I think Crucible Overlord seems a little bit better to me than the Herb Gatherer line. But like Herb Gatherer is a reasonable open here. What do you buy on 5? I mean, you're gonna want horns for sure. This might be too early for them. Second, there's no way that's right. That is ridiculous. RTT. A second Herb Gatherer. That is too many herbs. It is processing, or it's probably processed at this point, but it was processing when I went to bed. Siren trash. Oh, I that is a no. There's no way that's right. Like if you were gonna use it to trash the Siren, why not buy like a card you want more, like 2 encampments or something? I feel like Overlord is just the way to get Siren in this kingdom. Now feels like a good time for Horn of Plenty. I mean, Overlord as well, actually. I think I like Horn of Plenty now, because then you can buy Overlord and go into debt on your following turn, and you don't have to worry about spiking 5, because you've already got a Horn, which can gain you additional horns. RTT just really likes the Augurs, is what I'm gathering. I like Acolyte as much as the next guy, probably more than the next guy, but it just seems worse here than Horn by a lot. Like, you already got the Crucible to trash your estates. Estimates for how much is the bid on Mountain Pass? This is one of those kingdoms where you could bid 40 depending on the context. Like, you got enough horns to not need to buy stuff. Alright, sure enough, we trash one of the Herb Gatherers to gain a Siren. Are we just not going to play with Overlord? Overlord seems phenomenal here. So not only can it play Siren without requiring you to go through the little laborious process of trashing something, at least in the short term, it can also play encampments. The Overlord playing encampment is just +2 cards, +2 actions. You don't have to worry about the gold or plunder thing. Because Overlord is playing the encampment from the pile, and the encampment would try to return itself to the pile, except it's already in the pile, so it can't do that. And so all you're getting is the upside. That wasn't true of the old Overlord back, I think, pre-2019. It's like way back when. It used to be Overlord, like, literally became the card that it was playing, and so Overlord would return itself to the pile if you play something like encampment, but that hasn't been true for a very long time. That being said, I'm not sure either of these players has played in the ladder since 2019, given their seeding. They're both entering this tournament, I think, a little bit underseeded, given their historic performances. How is Sorceress better than Siren? Is that a trick question? The answer is it's not. Do one of them gain Sorceress? Oh my lord. Did they have some mutual agreement to like empty the Augurs pile for no reason? It's like a practical joke. I don't get why the Augurs are at 9 right now and the Overlords are at 10. Alright, we've killed the Herb Gatherer. I don't know why. We don't really need golds here. Um, they've drained half of the augers. Don't you dare, RTT. Horn of Plenty is right there. What are we doing? I don't understand why we're playing like auger money. This doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. Overlord. Sorceress. We have now gained more than half of the auger. If they had just gotten 2 sirens apiece, or like realistically 2 overlords apiece, at a reasonable time, there wouldn't be curses left to be giving out with sorceress at this point. Yeah, they have gained 9 augers, 0 horns of plenty, 0 overlords, just all the augers. I don't know why. Well, surely you play the siren here, right? Yeah, there's no way herb gatherer can be better. I don't think you want some number of encampments, I guess, for a village effect or 2, maybe, but like how many terminals do you need to play here? Your siren, for the most part. I would have bought an overlord there in a heartbeat. Or horn. Forge. How do I feel about Forge? I wish I knew the state of their decks a little bit better. I think Forge is likely to be useful. Yeah. Like, the Crucibles are not going to trash super fast. They're not great at trashing anything except for estates, which should all be gone by now. Yep. I'm surprised it took DSH until turn 12 to trash their last estate with an Herb Gatherer Crucible opening. But with curses coming in from Siren and apparently from Sorceresses, the Crucibles are not going to be fast to trash coppers. Adding multiples to them isn't going to make it much faster because Crucible is just not a great copper trasher or curse trasher. So 1 Forge to clean up a bunch of junk sounds pretty good to me, I think. I feel like test. Yep, I think it's back. Yep. I don't know what happened there. Hopefully my recording was still picking stuff up. I don't know how long I was inaudible. Just unplugging my microphone and plugging it back in seemed to fix the problem. Where actively adjusting the settings had failed. Mostly I've just been complaining about the fact that there's 10 augers gained. Beyond that, I don't think I've had a whole lot to say. I talked about the Forge for a bit, unlike Taka's line. It does seem that RTT is ahead. So one would hope we gain a Horn of Plenty now. I think I would forge a Cursed Triple Copper Plunder into Horn and then play it with your Herb Gatherer. Yeah, it is possible RTT just doesn't know that the Horn of Plenty card exists. That would explain a lot of what's happened in this game. Yeah, Horn of Plenty, Harvest. There's really no difference. Same expansion, right? $5 card starts with an H. Both farming related. Oh, that's a sad draw. So surely you can resign here. Dr. Steelhammer fails to find their forge. I presume they have a forge. And the RTT does not have two of them. Yeah, so it was just on the bottom, leaving a lot of junk in this deck. They also did not play a Siren, did they? Yeah, Dr. Steelhammer looks thoroughly lost, I would think. Especially when RTT has finally discovered this Horn of Plenty card that I hear is pretty good. Do you need 3 plunders? I feel like you don't need 3 plunders. Okay, so piles are super low. Like RTT could easily pile out next turn on horns. I think you'd probably rather play it safe. I'm not sure how much Dr. Steelhammer's deck is capable of. The answer is probably not very much. Yeah, that's true. This game hasn't ended appropriately if the augurs don't pile. Like, you're in for a penny, in for a pound. Acolytes kind of auto-pile themselves. I think you take a province here. Yeah. One of two things happens. Either Dr. Steelhammer takes a bunch of debt to get the mountain pass, in which case it's going to be harder for them to pile out because they can't buy much. Or they let you have the mountain pass and you have a big points lead. So mountain pass, I think, makes it a province buy a really good way to make sure you don't lose immediately. And then if RTT gets another turn, I would expect him to win pretty easily. 2 acolytes are gone. Indeed. Many cards are gone from that pile. If you're asking for a how or a why, I unfortunately cannot help you at all. There is no rhyme or reason to what has occurred in this game. I think we just have 2 players who really like augurs. Yeah, so Dr. Steelhammer lowering the already low pile, which in a close game would not make a whole lot of sense because you're opening up a pile up for your opponent. But in this scenario, when you're this far behind, you just kind of got to desperately pray for some sort of dud and then lower piles a bunch and try to sneak out a win. Unfortunately, DSH still doesn't get off a decent forge play and is left with a bunch of junk. And so, I mean, even given more turns, I'm not sure they'd be able to pile. Like, how do you take 4 horns and score 20 points as DSH here with this deck? Augurs are really fun. I do enjoy the augurs. Probably my favorite split pile, I think, if I had to pick. The wizards are fun, too. The worst split pile? Wait, do you mean in terms of, like, power level or in terms of enjoyability? Because fun-wise, that's a ridiculous take. Clashes exist, for one. In terms of power level, which one's the weakest? Well, I'll return to that thought in a moment. Well, then click on it more. Kingdom. So, we've got Destrier for draw. Is really the only draw. I mean, you got Stampede. Oh, there's Stampede Storeroom. How good is that? I don't think that's that good here. Maybe. So you got this combination where like Stampede is normally a you buy it once or twice in the early game maybe sort of thing for like a quick injection of draw. But then once you're playing your deck, you've probably played 5 more cards and then you can't buy it ever again. But with Storeroom, what you can do is you just buy Stampede and then use your Storeroom to discard all your coppers and estates for money instead of playing them. And so you can afford to buy like Stampede plus Province. And so there's a deck you can build. I forget the exact order, but like even if you subtracted the rest of the kingdom, what you could do is just you add like 2 golds and a silver or something, and then you buy Stampede. And then every turn you play all your horses, you draw all your cards, and then you play Storeroom, discard all the coppers and estates for money, play like 2 golds and a silver or something, and then you have 13 money. I think that works out. And then you buy Province and another Stampede to set up again. And that deck is pretty fast to start hitting single Province repeatedly. But I don't think you can build a bigger deck around that concept because you're capped out at playing 5 cards per turn. Well, 5 non-horse cards. And so like it's hard to get that deck to double Province, for example. And you can't add Groundskeepers to that deck because once the Groundskeepers in play, the Stampede fails. And so I don't think you could use that combo here. Because if you do the 1 Province thing, I think you'll get outscored by Groundskeepers probably. I don't think it's be fast enough to empty the provinces solo if your opponent can take 10 Groundkeepers and buy the estates. So probably you're just playing the more normal deck where you buy a bunch of Destriers. As someone, Silly Potter has pointed out, Supplies is good with Destrier because Supplies gains you a horse, which reduces the cost of every Destrier you buy. So you take Supplies early for your payload, and then they also reduce the cost of Destrier, and that makes you able to buy them for cheap. Is there a village in this kingdom? Villages are kind of limited. Oh, no, there's Snowy Village. I missed that one somehow. I was going to say it was just Contract, which is awkward, but a Snowy Village should be plenty. So yeah, I think the goal is get a bunch of Destriers, get a bunch of Groundskeepers, buy some estates, something like that. How do we open? They both open with Dismantle and Supplies. I don't know how I feel about that. So the case for Dismantle. The big thing to note here is that there's a pretty good 2-cost card in the kingdom, which is Supplies. Dismantle is a pretty abysmal trasher. Usually I think Dismantle's best case is you add it in the mid-game to add payload, like turning your golds into 5 costs or stuff like that. But for trashing, it's terrible at trashing estates because you trash 1 estate and you gain a copper and a gold, so you've made your deck thicker. And when you trash copper, it's just like terminal, trash copper, do nothing else. And so that's pretty bad too. But in this case, so firstly, there's no other way to trash your stuff until Carpenter activates. You could just wait and activate Carpenter. But if you want to trash, it's Dismantle or nothing in the early game. And the other thing that jumps out, it's kind of like this Miser scenario where like you play Dismantle, you trash a copper, chances are that hand is going to have like 2 or so money left. And so if there's nothing cheap in the kingdom, you're just doing nothing else that turn except trashing a copper, which is not much. But if there's a good 2 you wanted to buy, a hand of Dismantle 3 coppers estate, you can trash a copper, still buy a reasonable card like Supplies. And so I think the existence of Supplies makes the Dismantle open look a bit better, because you still could buy a decent thing on those turns. So I don't hate the Dismantle opening. I think probably there's a likely scenario where you trash like 1 estate with it, just to add a little bit of payload in the form of gold, and then otherwise using it to trash coppers. I don't think I trash multiple estates, although it appears the RTT might have. Yeah, there's 3 golds missing from the pile, so RTT must have trashed 2 estates, which I'm not a big fan of. What's the best loot? Let's see. Sword seems pretty good for 1. Draw is a little bit limited, so just -1 card is going to be painful. Early on, Prize Goat would be lovely. Staff would be pretty good here. I mean, you got Snowy Village, not that many terminals to play, but maybe Staff lets you do interesting stuff with Dismantle and such. What other loots could be good here? Figurehead would probably not be bad. Again, draw a little bit limited. Maybe Endless Chalice early on. Plus buy comes in handy as long as there's Destrius in the pile. Although, I guess we're not really getting loots until the Destrius have emptied. So, yeah, I'm going to say probably Goat. If there's coppers left in my deck, then Goat would be a good pull. Chalice is the worst. Nah, not... If you get Chalice before the Destrier is empty, it'd be one of the better loots here. Later on, still doesn't seem that bad. The worst here would probably be doubloons, I would think. Like, you just do not need another gold in your deck. The Destrier interaction here works out kind of sad. I'm not, and maybe they just wanted a Carpenter anyway, I don't know. But with Destrier and its cost reduction and a Haggler in play, if you buy the Destrier for 6, its initial cost, it reduces its cost before the Haggler gain, so you can't gain a 5 off of it. But like, you can't buy the 5 first and gain a Destrier off of that, because the Destrier only costs 5 after you bought the 5 cost card. So like, there's just no way to get Destrier Groundskeeper here. If you had a Supplies or something, you could play the Supplies first, then buy Groundskeeper and gain the now cheaper Destrier off of that. Do you want to loot here? Not that badly, no. 8 money. I would think probably Groundskeeper Supplies. Contract. That's exciting and different. Why does Destrier only show the front of the horse? Maybe it's a mounted horse. Maybe that's like a stuffed Destrier. I mean, Haggler only shows the front of the human. Groundskeeper as well. Dismantle. Carpenter. If not for supplies, I don't think it would even be clear that legs exist in this Dominion Kingdom. Oh, and Stampede has legs. Lots of legs. Oh, Forest Dwellers too. Okay, so legs are much more common on events than on Kingdom cards, is what I'm gathering here. I don't know what you mean, Iris. I don't see anything. The card just looks kind of blank. Alright, we've trashed an estate. Unfortunately, the fours here are not amazing. I think probably you just gain another dismantle with it, and then that trashes some coppers, and then you can dismantle the, or you can carpenter the dismantle up into a groundskeeper or something. Supplies, okay. Yeah, that's a good answer. We bought a gold. Maybe. I mean, what you really want is a groundskeeper. The question is gold and a groundskeeper better than groundskeeper and a 4? I don't know if that's true. I feel like groundskeeper and like a carpenter, dismantle, or supplies all sound better. $10 sure seems like 2 groundskeepers to me. More contracts, how exciting. I don't know why we have the contracts, but we do. My hypothesis is that just neither RTT nor DSH has played Dominion since Allies released, and they're just really excited to play with all the Allies cards. Supplies groundskeeper or more contracts. Okay. DSH is fine with just the one. I don't know how many village effects you really need here. I feel like Snowy Village should probably cover it. No free supplies. Maybe they were worried about piles for some reason. Like if you lower supplies, there's not really an imminent third pile, but maybe you just want the game to run as long as possible for some reason in DSH's position. Maybe he thinks he's behind and wants time to catch up. I don't know. I would have clicked supplies over that much thought. If you concluded that you just like literally didn't need the money for anything, then supplies could be worse than nothing. Yeah, basically the thing Steph is saying was like supplies over the long term is basically a peddler because it's +1 money, it's non-terminal, and horse is like a delayed +1 card. Over the short term, supplies is more like a copper. Like hypothetically, assume you just had exactly 1 turn left in the game and you knew the game was ending next turn, then buying a supplies would be equivalent to buying a copper because it would gain you a horse, but you wouldn't get to play that horse because there would be no following turn. And so, like if you think the game's imminently about to end, the fewer times you get to play supplies, the closer it becomes to a copper and the farther from a peddler it is. Like I don't know if this game's in that soon. Groundskeepers would get low, but then provided you don't open up a groundskeeper pile out, there's a lot of estates and duchies and stuff to be gained. This Haggler has not seemed that great to me, to be honest. I feel like there's just not enough cards at different price points that you actually want in this kingdom. Like you just want a bunch of groundskeepers, and Haggler doesn't get you more groundskeepers. We still have a lot of coppers left, which goes to show Dismantle is not the fastest trasher. Also, I don't know how many of the estates we trashed with Dismantle, but if so, we have a lot of extra coppers to get rid of too. I don't know if they had the terminal space for it. I feel like they did, but I would have liked, ideally, I think, a second Dismantle at some point to get all the coppers out of the deck by the time you want a green, so that you can be using your Carpenter plays trashing the green cards that you just bought for groundskeeper points. Maybe there's just no time to fit it in, but I would have thought about a second Dismantle if there was a good point for it. Kill all the coppers quickly, then turn the Dismantles into groundskeepers or duchies. DSH has as many coppers as he started with. Sad. What are these bottom 2 cards? I thought they were just like coppers or something. Maybe I'm wrong. Aren't they coppers? Yeah, those are just... Why did RTT top deck 2 coppers? Copper to estate. I don't remember how much money he had and how much money he needed. But, yeah, with Groundskeeper, province is not that important. Had to contract the horse. Is contracting the horse better than just playing the horse? Like if you could play the horse immediately to get 2 coppers off of your deck, have 2 more money, and I don't know why do you want to leave 2 coppers? I mean, maybe if you are just really regretting the contracts and just actively want to get the contract out of your deck. Does he need the village effect? But like you could have drawn them this or this past turn. The village effect is good. How many terminals does RTT have? There's the storeroom, there's the dismantle. Does he have 2 carpenters? Someone has 2 carpenters. Maybe it's DSH. RTT has 2 carpenters. So I think that's exactly as many terminals as you could play, right? 1 snowy village would let you play storeroom, dismantle, 2 carpenters. Does he not need the money? It kind of seemed like he could have used the money there. Oh yeah, this does look rough. What was DSH's starting hand here? Estate and 4 horses. Okay, that sounds like a good starting hand. And then we drew golden storeroom, dismantle snowy, copper contract, copper supplies. Oh, that is rough. So after playing 4 horses and seeing 9 cards from our deck in total, ignoring the horses, they found none of their destriers and had to play the snowy village immediately. That is a pretty unfortunate draw. I'm not sure how many destriers DSH has, but presumably some number. Are you sure about Stampede here? I'm not as sold. Oh, that was not one big message. I just saw the last line of Hawkeye's message that just said Stampede. I thought that was a recommendation of what DSH should buy. I think DSH after Storeroom could discard for Stampede. Oh yeah, maybe that's a good line. So you play all your horses. You see a hand that's just like snowy Storeroom and a bunch of junk. Maybe you don't even play the snowy. Maybe you just play the Storeroom immediately. And then you can play gold contract supplies and then hope to draw like a 4th treasure. Maybe you play the snowy, then you play the storeroom and you leave 3 treasures. But the upside of doing, like if you know you got a dud hand anyway because you got no destriers in it, you play the storm, you discard everything. Now you get fewer than 5 cards or fewer than 6 cards in play, and you could buy a Stampede for the following turn. I think that sounds good. GG. Is there pile out? Let's see. RTT does not have a points lead, so we would need to gain 2 groundskeepers, 3 supplies, and an estate. We got 2 buys. Dismantle's a 3rd gain. Snowy is another buy. It's 4. Carpenter. Yeah, looks like this should be a pretty easy pile out, I would think. We have the money for it. What order does Dismantle go in? Trash a card, gain a card, and then a gold. So if you wanted, you could dismantle a destrier into a groundskeeper. If it went the other way around and you gained the gold first, you actually wouldn't be able to dismantle destrier into groundskeeper. Well, how many points did DSH score? Let's see. Okay, yeah, he got 2 duchies worth. I think the storeroom line might be able to get 1 duchy in a Stampede. Pretty sure it could do that much at least. Okay, so we're not playing the last destrier before Snowy, which says I want to dismantle the destrier, which makes sense. I haven't counted, but this should just be easily winning. Copper to supplies, contract to groundskeeper. Probably a lot of options here work. province to province. I think pretty much carpentering any two of these cards into any two of the cards you need to gain should probably work out. I guess aside from province into supply. Maybe even province to supplies would work. I don't know. All right, I think that's 2-0 for RTT. Oh, I was about to say Stampede's pack. This is a small Stampede. It is just the one horse. What do we got here? Another event that gives loots. Maybe this one will see more play than last time. Not clear, but perhaps. So we've got Bat from Vampire can thin cards. Masquerade can thin cards. Raise. Taxman, kinda. For draw, there's Paddocks. There is Puka. There is Sea Chart. Draw is looking kind of limited because Sea Chart is not really that much draw. And Paddock and Puka are both terminal. And with that in mind, where are the villages in this kingdom? There's no villages at all unless you either pull Staff from the loot pile or, well, I guess technically also Orb. Orb can be a village. Staff is the real village. And then eventually Paddock could be a village if piles run. But it tends to be the case that if like the kingdom sucks until 2 piles are empty, you can't commit to Paddocks because your deck is just too bad until then. The opening. So DSH has 7-2. RTT has 4-5. The 4-5 seems a lot better to me. Vampire Masquerade just seems like the opening you'd really want it to do if you could. Actually, 7-2 is the only split on which you can't do Vampire Masquerade. So DSH definitely has the worst opening here. Steph says Masquerade over Vampire. That sounds probably right to me. Like, the Vampire comes with a curse. You have to play the curse gold to get it. And I think if I had like 5 coppers, I would take a Vampire over a Masquerade. But Masquerade is probably better than Vampire and a curse. Seems like it. You get an immediate trash. You probably hit 5 next turn off your cursed village or your cursed gold, and then you can add a Vampire then. The 5s here don't seem that important, to be honest. I'm not seeing a pile that's going to run fast enough to make Paddocks super important, so like the Vampire gain doesn't seem great. I think this could just be like Masquerade money with some loots. Sounds pretty good to me. Like, you add a Masquerade or 2, and you start buying looting, and then you buy provinces, and that's it. And the opponent who tries to play with Paddocks is going to have to empty, like, the whole Sea Chart pile on their own just to make Paddock non-terminal. That sounds awkward. Not impossible or anything. Like, loot is going to be non-terminal plus buy that could get you Sea Charts. But it sounds like a lot of investment. There's no alt VP, really, to catch up. Vampire makes getting Dutties a little bit easier, and you can give them, like, twice miserable, maybe, but there's not that much payoff. I think I like Masquerade money. Masquerade is like one of the strongest money enablers, I think. I mean, also good at getting engines going a lot of the time, but there's just I think there's not enough of an engine to be built here. Masquerade is a good deck enabler. Yeah, that's about right. Sage. Exciting. Why do we have Sage? Maybe that's better than Sea Chart? If you're playing money, Sage is probably better because you're not going to have any good Sea Chart targets. Opponent can also horse stuff back on you for Paddock stuff. Yeah, if they have cards from the relevant piles. Like, if I were playing Masquerade Money, I probably wouldn't have any of the Sea Charts to send back in the first place. Oh, that would be funny, I get. Yeah, maybe you just keep one Sea Chart on hand, so then your opponent empties the Sea Charts, and then you just, like, you horse one. The flip side is you've lowered the Sea Chart pile, so they get to turn on the Paddocks earlier. And then you horse the Sea Chart to brick one of their turns, and then they buy that sea chart, and then their deck is running. Two vampires. I don't think I like having two vampires here. I mean, two vampires I think is probably the plurality of cases with Vampire in the Kingdom. Like I think that's most often the number you want. Probably. It's like 2 followed by 1 followed by 0. 3 is kind of rare, but not unheard of. But like Vampire is better when you need the trashing from Bat and or you want to gain 5s. And I mean, Masquerade's a decent amount of trashing. Raise also. And the 5s here, I don't really want in large quantities. And so the 2 vampires just seems like too many vampires to me. I don't think the Sages over Sea Charts is so ridiculous. Like it definitely caught me off guard because Sage just seems like a worse card in general. But like, how often are those Sea Charts going to hit in these decks versus Sage potentially skips a copper or a curse or something? These Paddocks are doing a fat lot of nothing. They get drawn dead by the Masquerades all the time. I don't think I think 1 Paddock is a reasonable number. Like, you could play Masquerade money with just the 1 Masquerade, but like, you can add a second terminal to that deck, and it's going to be useful more often than not. So a second Paddock, I think, or sorry, a first Paddock, a second terminal in the deck is reasonable, even if it's not working out here. Whoever has 2 Paddocks, I'm a little bit more skeptical of. 2 Paddocks is a lot of Paddocks. I guess that must be the player who doesn't have a Masquerade. So they both got a mask. Return the Masquerade. RTT got rid of his Masquerade. So I'm assuming he has 2 Paddocks. No. drsteelhammer has 2 Paddocks and a Masquerade. And RTT just has a Paddock and nothing else. Intriguing. So I would think as Dr. Steelhammer, you probably are using Way of the Horse on Masquerade imminently, because it seems like you're a little bit over terminal. 3 terminals is a lot of terminals for a deck that has no villages and is also fairly thin. I think like 2 is a better number here. And so you'd either horse Masquerade or Paddock. And given that DSH has 2 vampires, so like a lot of thinning from bats, I think Paddock will probably be the better terminal than Masquerade going forward. Here, I think like playing it was probably reasonable because you didn't see another Paddock in hand. As it turned out, like, he would have drawn a horse and probably would have drawn into a Paddock, but like, he didn't know that. So like, that Masquerade play I think was fine, but you could have considered just horsing it already. RTT is Mega 1. I have no idea. Just looking at a starting hand, I'm going to guess that's probably right. Looks like he's got more payload already and a fairly thin deck. RTT does have a lot of C charts, but he also has a loot. So I'm getting mixed messages on how much he's trying to build. I'm thinking RTT maybe had the C chart plan in mind, like buy a bunch of C charts, activate your Paddocks. I feel like he should be pivoting away from that though. Like, if you see that DSH has a bunch of Paddocks, then activating C charts is going to help your opponent way more than you. And so I think RTT should be looking to buy loots by provinces and then send back some of these C charts to stop DSH from getting his deck online. But yes, I would certainly take RTT's position, just seeing how this game is going. The Sages have returned to their natural habitat, the supply pile. Yeah, look, we have all these Paddocks and they're doing absolutely nothing. Worse than nothing, they're just being junk cards in the deck. All right, now's the time, RTT. Send back a C chart. We get to see, who is it? Was it JH who was mentioning this earlier? Now I think we actually have a scenario where returning cards with horse seems like the clear best play. RTT can send back one C chart per turn to guarantee that Paddocks is never active on DSH's turn, and then DSH has to keep buying the C charts out of the pile. And RTT could sustain himself on that for a while. Oh, he didn't do it. That's sad. Missed opportunity there. Oh yeah, 100%. I think RTT, like, first C chart he has, he should have horsed. RTT is following along with the Paddock thing, which I think is the wrong play. Like, you could have made this Paddock deck just a total disaster for the next like 4 turns straight, maybe more. Like, RTT has all the C charts. If he just horses one C chart per turn, like, that would last him until the end of the game, which means DSH is now left buying out 6 Paddocks on his own, or like 8 Razors or something. That's not going to happen. Or emptying the curses solo with his cursed gold. Yeah, I think that was a misplay by RTT, following in on this Paddock thing. He's going for something. I'm not seeing what it's gonna be here. We're gonna gain 4 Paddocks a C chart, 5 curses and points. Oh, the returning. I thought like we're going for a pile out. We're not close. Maybe DSH is playing some like 4D chess here. He takes all the Paddocks to bait RTT into the Paddock line, and then he horses all of his C charts. I just don't want the 5-cost cards. These vampires are not very good. Is a silver better than a horse? Maybe. I was thinking of just gaining a random action like Taxman or something and playing it its way of the horse. Silver might be better. I think, I'm not sure how many gains RTT has. If he has enough gains to make it a threat, then maybe not. But I think theoretically I would take 2 Paddocks as Dr. Steelhammer there, just fully well knowing I'm going to horse the Paddocks next turn. But like, you lower the Paddock pile, misdirecting RTT, and Paddock is a card that your C charts could... Actually, no, your C charts can't hit Paddock because you can't play a Paddock before the C charts. So the main reason I want to do that actually doesn't apply. Shield to the rescue. I think greed actually would not have been that bad there, right? Because if you know the copper's on top, you can play the sage first. Yeah, he had a sage in his starting hand. Horse time. If I had more Paddocks than the other player, I would buy raises to make an unreturnable pile. I think that just sounds way too slow to me. You gotta buy 8 raises to turn on your Paddocks. I think this is the place where both of them kind of misplayed the kingdom. I think, like, you look at a kingdom and you're like, if I could empty the Paddocks and empty another pile, my deck would be amazing. And then you realize that if your opponent just doesn't help you with that, that's gonna take forever. And then something like Masquerade Money is going to have emptied provinces in that time. Trashing Paddock over horse is crazy. That does seem like a bit of a strange choice, given that Paddock can just be a horse. Why would you trash a paddock over a horse? Is there a good reason for that to make sense? Okay, hypothesis. If you were just like sure that you had to pass a card with your masquerade, if paddock is better than horse, then you'd rather pass the horse so that your opponent ends up with a horse rather than a paddock. So it's not strictly worse than trashing the horse. Yeah, it could be a spite trash. You never know. It's important to instill a sense of fear in your cards so they get in line. Oh, wow. How many paddocks does RTT have left? Why are we being friendly about this? Does RTT just have the one paddock now? Okay, well, if he's just got the one paddock, then emptying C charts is reasonable. Although, speaking of which, RTT could have unemptied the C charts if Dr. Steelhammer has two paddocks. I think DSH has two paddocks to RTT's one. 5 buys does not look like enough buys. The piles aren't really lowering because things are getting sent back. This 3 province is good. Would you take triple province here? I am not sure. I don't think so. I don't think I like that. I mean, it doesn't look terrible or anything. You get a big points lead, but you also got 11 debt. Like, if you're hitting 25, I would have considered a line that doesn't lower provinces and it adds, like, I don't know, a capital and a bunch of actions that can be horsed, for example. And then if your opponent takes any provinces, you triple in response, something like that. That seems better to me. It's my intuition. Like, here, Dr. Steelhammer should take a bunch of duchies and then hope that RTT can't hit 8 and get out of debt. Like, if RTT draws both of his capitals, he should probably be fine. Well, even then, that's not so true. Like, 2 capitals just pays off the 11 debt, and you still have to find 7 more money. So, like, it is far from guaranteed, I think, that RTT can get a province here. Horse into vampire. Seems good, right? Yeah, because Dr. Steelhammer is going to have to get a duchy on top of a province here. Horse the C charts. Back from whence ye came. Horse the paddock now. Horse Traders is the better card than paddock at this point, just because there's 1 more money. Did he not play the Amphora? Oh, do you mean for money? Yeah, for money seems better. Just on the off chance he triggers a shuffle and can draw back around to it. This must be winning, right? Yeah, this is easily winning. Yeah, so it looks like the triple province line did not work out. I'm not sure if like that was the losing play, but I wasn't a big fan of it. Yeah, Dr. Steelhammer is overshooting here by a good bit. He could have gotten an extra duchy off of the vampire. All right, 2-1 RTT's favor now. DSH coming back. Yeah, a little bit too much hammer for my liking. What do we have here? Villages, bandit camp, town, technically nobles. Draw, destrier, nobles, garrison, stronghold. Or I'll draw thinning. You got priest, cage, and that's it, looks like. Plus buy. There's town for plus buy, and Hillfort can gain things. So buy's a little bit limited. Town's not the best plus buy source. It's much better using it for its village effect, but it'll do the trick. Destrier will be less good here with the limited buys. Not the best Garrison Kingdom ever. I mean, Garrison still won't be bad. Oh, actually, never mind. I take that back. Bandit Camp is great for Garrison because you play a Garrison before all your Bandit Camps, then every spoils triggers a token and that gives you draw. So how does one open here? Poacher Cage seems right to me. Priest Silver would also be fine. What did they do? Priest Oasis. Top decking the Oasis. How do we top deck? Oh, is that the faded card? Okay, maybe if you can guarantee that you top deck it, Oasis could be justified over Silver. I don't know. I'm one who just kind of ignores Oasis 95% of the time, unless it's got some strong discard synergy. I feel like it's usually worse than Silver. Yeah, Cage seems good to me. I think I would take a Cage. You're not going to green super early here. Nobles kind of complicates Cage a little bit, but it's not like you need Nobles. And so it's like one Cage gets you super thin. I think I would open Poacher Cage just to guarantee that your Cage sets aside 4 things. Priest Cage is a little bit riskier because if you see him in the same hand, you're kind of sad. But it works out if you see him on opposite hands. I like a Cage opening, I think. Who did that? drsteelhammer did that. Well, that's unfortunate. I'm rooting for RTT because I want this match to go shorter. I will not be able to be here for the whole thing if it takes too long. They are playing really fast, though, so I think we'll probably be fine. Town Destrier seems pretty reasonable to me. I don't believe in RTT's opening. One Cage just accelerates your deck so much. Like you can build a while here before greening, and so that Cage is doing a lot of work. Pop it whenever you're out of other stuff to trash with your Priest, and then kill the last 4. I want to see a player gain a tint, because some of the more interesting cards in this kingdom are hidden below the tint. The tricky part is if you gain the tint, you're helping your opponent as well as yourself, so it's not necessarily in your interest, especially because tint is a pretty bad card here. Cage isn't always like a Chapel level thinner, but it kind of often is, and this is, I think, one of the kingdoms where it just looks about as good as Chapel. It's like the first Chapel play, with the downside if you can't play it additional times, but with the upside if it gets itself out of your deck immediately. And, Chapel's a pretty good card, so I hear. But now RTT can monopolize the nobles. Yeah, the nobles are not very good. I think you could play with like a nobles, or like if you didn't have a Cage, I think you could click a nobles maybe. If you've got bandit camps for actions, you buy nobles for the smithy. That's probably more efficient draw than clicking a bunch of Destriers because it comes with spoils for payload. Maybe I think the only explanation for this play is that Dr. Steelhammer did not realize that Nobles would trigger the Cage, because like mentally Nobles is an action card, and you don't register, oh, that's a victory card, that'll kill my Cage. Because yeah, putting 4 junk back on the deck at this stage does not seem like the correct play to me. That, I guess also, like, secondarily, why does Dr. Steelhammer need a Nobles right now? Like, what is it doing for you that's that important? I think, like, you can make a case that maybe a Smithy effect is marginally better than a Destrier with a surplus of bandit camps or something. But they don't have a surplus of bandit camps. Um, yeah, I think that looked pretty bad. 13. I don't think platinum looks any good yet. I don't think I have enough buys to make use of it. Something like Town Nobles Bandit Camp. That gives you enough villages to play all your cards next turn, because you added 1 terminal and 2 villages and you were over terminal by 1. You could rebuy the cage, maybe. Do we think to touch the fort pile? I think it's going to be hard to find time to do that. Because like if you play the tent, theoretically you get first crack at the garrisons, and garrison will be pretty good here once you've got a bunch of bandit camps. But step 1, you got to have a bunch of bandit camps, I think, for that to be all that valuable. And then step 2, you got to have enough terminal space to play like a tent and multiple towns in the same turn to buy a bunch of garrisons the turn you flip them. And then, you're also playing your priest, presumably. And so, I think by the time you would want to add a tent to be pretty late in the game. Otherwise, you're adding a terminal silver to your deck and playing a terminal silver, and what you're getting out of it is probably benefiting your opponent more than you, because you get like half a turn advantage to the garrisons, which is just not enough here. Not sure what the bottom 2 cards are for RTT, but one can presume that neither is a village, or he would have played the nobles for draw. Let's see. Probably a spoils or something. Spoils copper. Yep, that makes sense. I don't like these oases. Why would you top deck the oases? Like, do you want an oasis on top of your deck? Like, it's cantrip-ish, but it's also reducing your hand size. I think at least on that shuffle, and probably on a lot of shuffles, the correct answer is just not to use the faded effect at all. Because Oasis on the very bottom could also be awkward. If you've drawn your deck, then Oasis forcing you to discard is also pretty bad. I just want the Oasis to be like, I guess ideally not in my deck, but if they're in my deck, just somewhere in the middle. Colony. Are piles that low? That colony felt a little bit early to me. I don't think your opponent can gain 7 cards in a turn. Like, if you're ready to buy colony and piles aren't imminently running out, that seems like a time to add platinum to me. Platinum not super important here. Like, you could play without it because Bandit Camp is going to be pretty decent payload as well. Yeah, either a platinum or maybe just more Bandit Camps even. Yeah. All right, we got 8. What do you do with 8? Man, that cage pop was so bad. How is DSH not drawing his deck? Town Bandit. Yeah, I think I would add a camp to that probably, but otherwise I agree. These nobles are mostly being used as necropolises, and I think it's relevant to point out the bandit camp is also a village that gives +1 card and gives you a spoils. So it's basically like bandit camp is basically like necropolis that gives +3 money every time you play it, because the +1 card cancels out having to draw the spoils. Nobles is just a necropolis that gives you no money, nothing of value every time you play it. We are keeping a spoils. I mean, Town Duster seems like an okay set of buys, so it doesn't seem that you really needed the money. I think keeping spoils seems probably all right. DR could win. I don't know about that. 2 colonies and 3 towns. That's a lot of buys. Are you playing 5 towns for plus buy and hitting, what's that, 34 money? I'm not seeing that. Or do you just mean in general and not on this turn in particular? Let's see. Counting is pretty tough. This is one of the situations where like you should be counting it out closely as a player, and I just don't want to. But like the thing you'd be thinking of, I think, is DSH. There is. Would I rather play the town or the priest? I'd play the town if I really need the plus buy. Otherwise, the priest is gonna be better for thinning. And then if you decide you want to play the priest, you got to figure out, do I need exactly X amount of money or not? Because if you need like exactly as much money as you can get, you'd trash the estate. Otherwise, probably trashing the copper is better if you don't need that last 1 coin, because the estate could be like a tie-breaking point. What did he end up doing? He played a priest and trashed the copper. Yeah, so maybe we didn't need the last money for whatever he was going to buy, which was 2 colonies. Yeah, checks out. Okay, so what do you do here as RTT? Colony is dangerous because you know your opponent can at least in theory do double colony. I'm not sure how likely that is, but probably not that unlikely. They just did it last turn. So probably you want to take province. Oh, is there a win already? Let's see. Can we afford 3 towns in a province? You play the nobles for actions, and you got 2 money already. 6 more from the towns. That's 8. 9 from the spoils is 17. 10 from 1 copper, or sorry, 18 from 1 copper, then 20. Yeah, looks like it checks out exactly, right? Alrighty, so just barely getting there. 1 less money would not have done it. Like with 19, you could do 3 towns, a duchy, and an estate, but he had 1 buy too few for that. Yeah, I thought DSH had an incredible lead there that got blown when he bought the nobles. It's a lesson, kids. Nobles, not even once. All right, what do we got here? So draw. There is Ranger and Crypt and technically Shantytown. For villages, Shantytown and Acting Troop, neither of those is very strong, but they should do the trick. Tons of gains. Spices is buy, Cauldrons buy, Abundance is buy. You got Blockade and Inventor, which are like 2 of the strongest workshops in the game. Trashing, there is Crypt. Can you get rid of your estates? No. That also makes Crypt a little bit more awkward by extension, because you usually want to trash your estates first so that you can line up a bigger Crypt play. So probably looking to just add a bunch of draw and then like a later Crypt than usual. But like Ranger can give you a big turn where you line up crypting all your coppers. Where is this going? Blockade seems really good. Probably you're clicking Blockade and Shantytown, I would think is the opening. What do they do? Blockade and Shantytown. Checks out. A later crypt than usual. What's an average crypt turn? I don't know, like turn 6 or turn 7, I would think, is probably the standard. Something around there. Like here, I would want to have some reliability of lining up with Ranger. Like if you play an Inventor and a Blockade, you could set aside a Crypt. Or you could buy a Crypt and Blockade a Ranger. But I'm probably not adding a Crypt until I've got a Ranger in my deck and the token flipped down. Yeah, Ranger is... It's like halfway between a moat and a smithy if you think about it on average. Because like 2 moats draws you 4, 2 smithies draws you 6, 2 rangers draws you 5. And so like each ranger is on average netting you 1.5 cards. But that's assuming you can play them, which requires terminal space. Like 2 rangers and 2 villages. You play that, you're drawing 3 cards. But that's because villages draw neutral. Shantytown is drawn negative. So Shantytown plus Ranger is only getting you like net 1 card instead of net 3 cards. Like Shantytown Moat draws you like literally nothing. Shantytown Smithy draws you net 1 card. So like 1 Shanty and 1 Ranger averages out to like 0.5 additional draw, which is not a lot of draw. Acting Troop is going to be more efficient in terms of draw space because 1 Acting Troop lets you play 4 Rangers, but then you got to rebuy it because it kills itself. They're playing very quickly, and I've kind of not kept track of what they're doing. And it's not clear to me whether you just take a bunch of blockades early or a mix of blockades and inventors like they're doing. I think I would lean towards just taking more blockades. Like all the 4s just look really good. And so I'd be happy to take blockades and get the +1 card effect off of it. The attack isn't nothing either. The upside of Inventor is its cost reduction. So like if you line it up with your blockade, you could play Inventor first and then blockade at 5. And I mean like Spices looks okay. Crypt will be important soon-ish. But like, you could also just buy those. You don't need a bunch of them. So I don't think Inventor's doing enough early on. I wonder if this is worth it. I'm not sure what those bottom 5 cards are. The other order that RTT could have considered here was you play the Shanty first, and then Acting Troop and Inventor, which nets you +2 more villagers, because you didn't have to burn 2 villagers to play the other stuff before Shanty. But it comes at the cost of 2 fewer draw. And 2 villagers versus 2 draw is not super clear to me in this kingdom. Yeah, I mean, blockading Crypt could be a bit of a nuisance because curses hurt a lot here. So, like, if you happen to line it up on the turn where your opponent was planning to add their Crypt, that could be a problem. But, I mean, by the same token, blockading Ranger is about as likely to throw off their big Crypt turn. Sad hand for DSH. Do we have something that's going to save it? Nope. We're just going to get to play 2 Acting Troops this turn. Well, maybe, I don't know what this bottom card is. Maybe if this is a Ranger or something, you could pig the Acting Troop. Hopefully DSH knows what the bottom card is. He does not appear to believe it is a Ranger. I don't know. Maybe, I think, whatever that card was, I think even if it was a copper, you'd probably pig the Acting Troop. Like, you get 1 Acting Troop down immediately. But then importantly, you hit 3 instead of 2, so you get to buy an Acting Troop. I think that seems worth it. Play 1 Acting Troop instead of 2, but the upside is you get to buy an additional one. I would have picked an Acting Troop there, I think. Yeah, here I definitely like playing the blockade first, because if you can draw the crypt, which they did, pays off in spades. Abundance, unfortunately, does not synergize very well with crypt, because you can't set it aside. Why does acting troop die after one performance? There are one-hit wonders. What do you buy here? Second crypt, presumably. And, I mean, Cauldron, if the attack hits, could be really good. I'm not sure if that's worth it, but it could be. Curses will be a nuisance here. I would think about Cauldron pretty soon. I mean, it might just be that these piles run too quickly for the Cauldron attack to get in time. So I'm not sure if Cauldron is the move, but like you could think about it. For sure a second crypt, and then yeah, it could be like double acting troop, shanty I think are reasonable. Cauldron, spices even maybe. Oh yeah, at some point the Cauldron could shut off. Like if you played a bunch of blockades gaining all actions, and you'd gained 3 actions already before your buy phase, then the Cauldron couldn't trigger because it only triggers on precisely the 3rd action gained. So if you're getting your 4th action after you played your Cauldron, then it won't trigger. But like, I don't think they've got too many gainers in their deck. They're playing like 1 to 2 workshops a turn. Spices Ranger. I mean, it seems all right, but I would already be wanting to add the second crypt. Like you've still got, you'd be able to set aside 3 more coppers at a minimum. They do have 2 inventors. Maybe they could mid-turn gain 1. I don't know if they have that much draw, but possibly. Being a little late. It's never too late for crypt number 2. That doesn't track with me at all. Spices. Yeah, I think it is entirely possible Spices is better than Cauldron here, on account of it being fairly late in the game. 2 coffers immediately maybe threatens more of a pile out than the chance of giving them 1 curse. I'm not sure if that's true, but it's plausible. Strange to not pig. What didn't they pig? Oh, the Shantytown, yeah. If you have 1 action left, then there's no reason not to just play the Shantytown as a pig for +1 card. I mean, I presume. Unless there was like some bad shuffle they were going to trigger. I wasn't looking at the time. Alright. Shanty being awkward once again. Probably you just play 2 shanties normally, play these, and then play a shanty for draw. It looks like DSH values the draw enough that they're willing to burn a bunch of villagers here. That might be correct as well. So the upside of doing it this way, you're not playing your shanties for action, so you're spending a bunch of villagers to get all this stuff in play, but now you get to pig 2 shanties and then draw the last shanty. So you're getting 2 more draw out of it at the cost of, what, like 2 villagers, I think? Yeah, so 2 villagers for 2 draw, that might be a reasonable trade-off. If that's the plan, why not pig first? That's a good question. Yeah, at least you get more information about what cards you're going to draw, and then you can reevaluate. Yeah, it looks like this line is working out, though, all things considered. We are very low on villagers, though. This is worth noting. Man, imagine if this Spices were a crypt. That'd be beautiful. You'd be so clean. Is there a win here? Let's see. We got 1 adventure in play, 2 adventures. Yeah, this does smell like a win. That's a lot of cost reduction. Everything costs close to 0. Do we have enough gains for that? 5, 6, 7. I think this is winning. Can you afford 2 shanties, 3 acting troops, and ranger on an estate? Was that not the line? I mean, that looked like it was still going to be a win. And this works too. But there's not enough. It looked like the last line was winning. I mean, I didn't count it closely. I just kind of assumed there was enough money, but it seemed like there would be. Is that 2-2, 3-2? I don't know. RTT won the first 2, and then Dr. Steelhammer's won some number of games. Oh, and RTT won a 3rd game. RTT has 3 total wins. DSH has 3 as well. Is this game 7? Is it game 6? I don't know. All right, what have we got here? Game 6. So it's 3-2 RTT's favor, I presume. Yeah, it looks like they still got the extra menagerie setting on, is what I'm gathering from this kingdom. We got stockpiles, a lot of buys. Sanctuaries buy. Barges buy. Stonemason gains you lots of stuff. Pilots seem like they're going to happen quickly here. Villages are pretty limited. I think it's just Ironmonger, right? Which is a great card, but not the most reliable village, because every time it hits a treasure or a victory card, you don't get the village effect. Lots of draw. Destrier, which would be great with lots of plus buy. Barge, Catacombs. Apothecary is draw. Goatherd could be draw. What did they do? Ironmonger stockpile seems like a pretty good open to me. And we added a sanctuary. Oh, dang. $7 turn 4 is a pretty good outcome with Stonemason in the deck. Is it 2 sanctuaries? Maybe 2 sanctuaries. I would have thought about a barge, perhaps. Yeah, I'm going to say barge. I feel like I'd rather more draw. A barge and a sanctuary could be fine. What do you take here on 5? This could just be stockpile. That would not be ridiculous. Stockpile and nothing. Ooh, Maelstrom. I like that too. That sounds possibly better. I don't know if you wanted the Maelstrom. The second sanctuary is looking a little bit silly. Unclear. Probably a pretty lucky reveal for the Ironmonger. The village effect looks useful here. I would have strongly considered Stonemason in that sanctuary. Maelstrom attacks other people. I don't think it's got... I mean, maybe late in the game. It seems probably more friendly than not here. Yeah, I think I like Stonemason in that second sanctuary as RTT. Get like a Ironmonger, Destrier, stockpile or something like that. But I mean, this line will leave you really thin. Maybe too thin even. Like if you next turn this barge, I think you're at a real risk of your Ironmonger not having a target because you'll have drawn your deck. 2 turns off. I don't know how many turns off, but yeah, piles will run very fast in this kingdom. Tons of plus buy from stockpiles. Stockpiles will run out. Destrier will be really cheap. Stonemason just leads to very quick gains. The one thing that's awkward is if you're trying to pile Destrier, stockpile Stonemason, which are like the 3 piles most likely to run. Stonemason is terrible at gaining Destriers because you literally cannot gain 2 Destriers off of Stonemason. And then obviously can't gain stockpile. Is there still a way to technically gain 2 Destriers off of Stonemason? I don't think there is anymore. It used to be that in a very contrived context it was possible, which was if you had the pre-errata quarry in play, the one that gave -2 cost reduction as long as quarry was in play, but not on play, then you could gain a Destrier, trigger some sequence of events that causes you to trash your own quarry from play or remove from play via like Mandarin or something, and then that would increase the cost of Destrier enough to make Destrier's cost the same as it used to. And quarry got changed so it doesn't give while in play cost reduction, and Mandarin's gone. I think there might be other ways to get it out of play. DZ is secretly very interested in that, but he has to play coy. Oh yeah, mint work. Well, you say mint still. I think mint now gets things out of play. Because like the pre-errata mint actually couldn't have gotten quarry out of play mid-Destrier gain. But now it can. So it's like mint stepped up to the plate when Mandarin stepped away. So yeah, mint fills the Mandarin role of getting quarry out of play. The problem is you still need the old quarry, I think. Didn't D have 4 Destriers there? I have no idea. I got distracted. Here we have Ironmonger being sad. You have so much draw that your Ironmongers just can't do anything. So RTT has spent all of his stockpiles, which is not many. DSH appears to still have a bunch in the deck. So I'm going to guess DSH is in a good spot here. RTT seems to have more deck control. Some might say too much. Meanwhile, DSH says hands full of treasures over and over. That was... Yeah, these poor Ironmongers. This is what I meant by like, Ironmonger's a good card, but a bad village. Is... Okay, you bottom decked 1 Ironmonger, and now it can't be a village because there's nothing left for it to reveal. The other Ironmonger flipped 1 of your treasures. And so now you just cannot gain and play with the Stonemason, which is presumably what you ideally want to be doing. Or, even playing the Stonemason at all, for that matter. Or maybe you do play the Stonemason. Maybe you just forget this barge because it's causing you problems. Does it matter for Mason if you get Destrier first or second? Yes. The Destrier does change cost while you're resolving the Stonemason. That's why you can't gain 2 Destriers off of it. So like if you bought Stonemason and Destrier at 5, the Destrier would become 4, and then you would not be able to gain a second Destrier. So like you have to time the Destrier so that you're gaining it at the right cost. Like the way Stonemason works is like, let's say you overpaid 5. You have to gain 2 cards costing 5. If the first card you gain is Destrier, you don't then gain a 4 cost as your second card, but it means Destrier can't be your second card. This is a lot of money, a little bit too early. Piles are like just high enough that playing a bunch of stockpiles for 6 buys isn't resulting in an immediate win. And unfortunately, buys are going to get much more scarce now that all the stockpiles are getting played. Double golds. I don't know what you'd take there. More Ironmongers seem like it'd be pretty reasonable, like Stonemason double Ironmonger or something. I would like to have the terminal space to do useful things with my Stonemasons. RTT's deck is just not functioning. So here, I think you Stonemason the Destrier, which gets you a 5 and a 4. Probably. Alright, we just don't want to do anything with the Stonemason. Province, that's a card that you can gain. I have my doubts about that province. Mainly because like your deck isn't functioning and it is just barely hitting 8, which means if you're putting a province in it, you can't expect the deck to be getting any better, which means you're just asking yourself to have that same turn over and over again. And that does not sound like a winning proposition to me. Maybe he's going to Stonemason the province into 2 golds. I mean, that actually could work, you know. Province and double gold sounds all right. Destrier, yeah, like I thought you Stonemason the Destrier there. And like you could still buy the province if you wanted the province. Yeah, Catacombs, like for draw purposes, I think Catacombs is worse than Barge. You get the flexibility of seeing which 3 cards you want to draw, but I think the ability to duration is better. But for purposes of being a potential Stonemason target, Catacombs is potentially very threatening. Like you could gain an extra Ironmonger off of it, for example. Stonemason, Catacombs into triple Ironmonger is going to lead to, you know, some potential pile-outs. All right, we find ourselves in the same position with 2 more money this time, though. So are we going to kill this Destrier yet? We are. Goodbye, Destrier. Is this seriously the game plan? Buy 1 province, exile at every turn. Like if the deck were in a slightly better spot, buying a province and exiling it would sound fine. Like if you were buying a province and adding useful stuff to your deck, that doesn't seem unreasonable. I think the problem was specifically buying it with only 8 money in the entire deck. If you waited a turn, you had like 13 money, and you did exile a province per turn and add some stuff, that would sound better. Yes, I believe that is the score. Lemon. What are we gaining and playing? They don't stop and count. They like clicking the cards. I think DSH is in the better spot here. This is a very swingy kingdom, I think. So, you know, not entirely clear. This must be winning here. Let's see. We got to score points and lower piles. What would the pile out look like? Stonemason catacombs into 2 ironmongers and a stonemason. Well, then you can't draw an ironmonger with a stonemason. Yeah, I'm not seeing a pile out, I don't think. So catacombs into 2 ironmongers and a stonemason. You draw the other stonemason with the sanctuary. You stonemason a silver into 2 stonemasons. Now you've got to gain 3 stonemasons, 2 ironmongers, and yeah, I don't think that's gonna work. What about stonemason silver into 2 stonemasons first? Draw them with the catacombs, but then you can't play them both. Stonemason silvers into stonemasons, play the sanctuary, draw 1 stonemason, then do the iron. I don't know. I mean, RTT is lower in piles. Maybe he sees something I don't. Is there a Destrier pile? I don't think he's got the buys for that. $15, so close. Yeah, I don't think that was a pilot line. That was just like, I want more stuff line. But we are lowering piles kind of dangerously. Is Destrier better than a stonemason for 2 5s, for example? Or even just better than a duchy? $11. Province. Goatherd, I thought, might be good there if your opponent is playing stonemason. Caravan Guard, I mean, is better than nothing for sure, but not doing a whole lot. Maybe silver's the right move. It seems like with the level of debt control DSH has, I don't like the silver as much. All right, have we a pile out now? This looks more promising. What's the max you could gain? Let's say stonemason Destrier into 2 ironmongers, maybe. Then Destrier costs 4. Then you can't stonemason for Destrier ironmonger, I don't think. So we're just gonna score. Okay. Yeah, probably there wasn't a pile out there. Now this is not a counting match. This is a feelings match. RTT and DSH are demonstrating that peak German efficiency. We're getting in a whole match in like an hour and a half. Well, let's see. What was this position a second ago? So we had 5 silvers, a gold, a stonemason, and a destrier. And how much money? 1 extra money? That's going to be hard to count in head without seeing the cards. Given their seedings, I don't think either of them is super interested in playing rating games. All right, now is there a win? We got a lot of buys. This feels like it should win. This feels like it should win. So let's say stonemason barge into double ironmonger, maybe. And then you've got to buy ironmonger province double destrier. Can you afford that? That'd be 1, 2, 3, 4 gains before the destriers. So you'd have to pay 2 and 1 for the destriers. So you would need 12, 15 money for that line. Doesn't look like we got enough for that. Like 2 coins short that way. What else could you do? I feel like any win has to involve stonemason in the barge. If you like, you could kill the gold for double duchy maybe, but I don't. Well, what about stonemason for double dutch? Yeah, what stonemason gold for double duchy? You'd take the points lead, then you do double stonemason overpay, buy 2 death steers. That sounds like a win, right? Gold in the 2 duchies. Then you've got 6, 7, 10 money. Overpay stonemason twice. You get 2 money left. Doesn't matter because death steers cost 0. That's a win. I think it takes a second to get there because like your intuition is to stonemason the barge since it's otherwise a dead card in your deck, like that. Maybe there's a different pile out here that we see. That sure looks like DSH is seeing a different pile out. Let's see what they found. I'm still not seeing it, so I'm curious. Isn't this like money and buys short? A losing tie? How's it a losing tie? I don't think you have the buys. So just to be clear, you can't stonemason overpay for destrier at 0 cost. The overpay effect only works if you're overpaying at least 1. So like if the line was going to be duchy estate stonemason gain 2 destriers, you can't gain 2 destriers once they cost 0. You also can't gain 2 destriers when they don't cost 0 because destrier changes cost mid stonemason gain. I think DSH is realizing what he's done. There was a win there. This line does not look winning. I don't think there's a win from this position. Oh god, what do we do at DSH? No! Are we just falling on the sword? I'm not seeing a pile out. I don't think it exists. I mean, you could pile for a loss here. Okay, DSH is basically just throwing in the towel unnecessarily. We had a deterministic win in that position. Well, yeah, anticlimactic finish. But this will be the match. 4-2 for RTT. Making it to quarterfinals once again. I'm presuming there's a pile out here. There has to be. There's like nothing left in the piles. Wait. This doesn't work. No! Oh, never mind. I didn't even notice that the provinces were too. I was about to burst a gasket, thinking that he was trying to stonemason for the destriers. Okay, wow. That was stressful. Yeah, they managed to play 6 whole games in under 2 hours. That was lovely. Anyways, that's the match.